is it, do you find some of the criminals are locally in the country, that they're kind of more on the physical side, or is it predominantly across border?
Most attacks, when you look at whatever form of an attack map, actually
Mm.
originate from northern parts of America or Western Europe. And it's not that, Western allies have suddenly decided to declare war on us. But if you look at the internet infrastructure that are located in those countries, then it's so cheap there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 401 Access Denied podcast. I'm Joe Carson, the host of the episode today, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm really excited. We're always looking to bring, latest up-to-date information, and also things to help you really, get a better understanding of the cybersecurity landscape and what things you can do in order to make the world a safer place. And I have a fantastic guest with me today, and somebody I've known for some time now. And welcome to the episode today. Welcome, Tonu. If you can give the guests a bit of a background of who you are, what you do, and how you get into the industry as well.
Thanks, Joe. So hello, everyone. I'm Tonu. I'm director of CERT-EE, which is part of Estonian National Cybersecurity Center. And what we do? Well, that's an interesting question. We try and make our little corner of cyberspace clear of all the malicious things that could come to us, or if something comes from outside world and targets our citizens and companies, we'll try to diffuse them as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. So when was the Estonian CERT established? How long has it been something new, or has it been around for some time? You tell us a bit of background about the Estonian CERT.
We have been around since 1st of January 2006, so that's just a year and a little bit before we first got hit in 2007, where I think at the time there was just 3 people. The number is magnitude different today, but also what we do has changed quite a bit, and we are a member of FIRST since 2010, which is the largest sort of framework organization for national security teams, also different product security teams, and number of different regional groups also.
Okay, and what's the activities? What do you do? What's the day in the CERT look like for somebody working there? What is it kind of? Is it kind of battling cyber threats all day and all day long, or what does the activities look like? What is the day in the life of a CERT employee for?
Well, it's a fantastic question, Joe. We don't actually control what we do during the day. Our agenda is well defined by our adversaries who decide that they might want to make some money out of Estonian people and or use the cyber resources of Estonia. But apart from jokes, most often what we see are different types of phishing that most likely target different citizens with regards to different bank loggings. And what happens on the background if you fall into the trap is that you actually authorize someone to log into the bank on behalf of yourself. Ultimately, you're led to authorize a financial payment from your account to the account of the criminals behind. And what we try to do is, when we understand the dynamics of how criminals work, to invest little and make some money back out of that investment, and we'll try and counteract that, meaning that we'll drive up the costs of criminals and reduce the revenues, and ultimately we'll drive them out of business if they come to us.
Fantastic. Sounds like it's a big battle on your hands, because one of the things I'd like to know is from the Estonian side of things, what's the most common types of attacks that you deal with? Is it phishing and ransomware? Are they the 2 most predominant, or is there other types of attacks that are kind of that you see more trending?
Well, again, reverting back to the business side of cyber criminals, they want to invest little and make a lot in return. So most typically what you would see is phishing, because it's such a cheap attack and it yields possibly good revenue. There have been on occasion ransomwares, but I would not count them as main types of attacks that we deal every day. Actually, what we deal far more often these days than ransomware or different DDoS attacks, which originate from sort of Russian-minded hacktivist groups on the background.
So more politically motivated than financially, in some cases. So DDoS attacks, they can be a bit of both, depending if they're looking, from a service perspective. But it sounds like a cyber mercenaries who've got an agenda.
I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter if the service doesn't work for the customers. Then it doesn't work, and then it's our duty to try and help, and even for private companies, not to mention government, if they are under attack, on the best of circumstances, we can step in within 2 minutes and try and help them. So we'll try and sort of populate our toolbox so that we can disrupt as much of the malicious activity as possible with as effective means as possible.
Okay. And where's the, when it gets to attribution, I know is one of the difficult things in our industry. Where do you find most of these attacks originating from? Is it from countries where, they're predominantly known as harvesting and providing safe havens for cyber criminals? Or is it kind of across the board? Is it, do you find some of the criminals are locally in the country, that they're kind of more on the physical side, or is it predominantly across border?
Most attacks, when you look at whatever form of an attack map, actually originate from northern parts of America or Western Europe. And it's not that, Western allies have suddenly decided to declare war on us. But if you look at the internet infrastructure that are located in those countries, then it's so cheap there. Whereas if you want to find a sort of server in Antarctica, most likely you will never do that, and they are heaps expensive in Africa. So criminals, as I said before, are looking for ways to optimize costs, and then that's the result of them optimizing costs. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that they themselves are located there. And many attackers, ultimately, they either end up in different parts of Eastern Europe or in Russia, or in different parts of Africa. So just because an attack originated from a country X doesn't mean that the attacker is there.
Absolutely. They use a lot of proxies. And to your point, cost is a big factor. And if they find it cheaper to host their attacking services in other countries, they'll absolutely do that. What type of collaboration does the CERT collaborate? As you mentioned, they could be dealing with multiple countries. Is there a lot of collaboration between CERTs? Is there like a form of communication or a channel that's opened? What's the communication between national CERTs working?
Nationally, it depends on how our counterparts in different countries can help us. Typically, when we look at malicious activity that targets us, the criminals tend to use legitimate service providers who, in general terms, look after their good reputation themselves. So all we need to do is we do the notification that we've detected a malicious activity from one of their servers, and they get their act together and remove it. When this doesn't work always, or it doesn't work efficiently, we need to use our colleagues in the respective countries to give their sort of shoulder to get it working. And of course, last but not least, we know that there's always going to be bulletproofs and countries which take cybersecurity perhaps a little bit more relaxed way than we do. So we've started since 2020 to increasingly work with private sector. And private sector who has the possibility to disrupt through some of their security products. So for example, if you have Windows, most likely you have Windows Defender, Microsoft is behind. If you have some of the firewall vendors like Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet, you name it. So we'll try and push as much of the actionable information out towards them, with the hopes that they bring it on board their sort of knowledge base. And through their products, this sort of gets pushed out towards their customers. And if they are in Estonia, we can actually create the sort of positive feedback loop and virtually take something down even before it physically gets taken down.
Okay, that's fantastic. And one of the things I'm interested in always is, for the audience out there that might want to, they might see a career in CERT. What type of skill sets are you looking for, and what's the kind of the training that you're looking, that the CERT, employees go through in order to become, some of the best defenders in the world, and to reverse engineering and so forth. What's the type of skill sets that you need?
Well, first of all, the positive side is that for us, no day is a boring day, which means that we always get to see something new that your most
Hmm.
typical companies and the security people working there hopefully never get to see, but we see it much more often. So that's definitely a pro, if you can
Hmm.
say it like that. But in terms of training, all we need is on the least side,
Hmm.
just that your eyes are glowing and you want to do cybersecurity, and we can
The
start
passion,
your career path.
yeah,
Exactly, we can
the
start the
passion and then
career path
excitement. Yeah.
within house. But also, if you have sort of computer skills, you are
Mm.
either a network administrator, system administrator, you've worked in security before. This is all beneficial, and most of the stuff that we do actually no product
Hmm.
team or company does, because they only look after one entity, whereas
Hmm.
our entity is actually a country and then citizens and companies in general. So it's a
Hmm.
little bit different. But what motivates people is the fact that they can actually make a meaningful punch towards the bad guys.
Okay, no, it's always good, and to get to, the right skill set and the right mind frame, in to help us. We always try to get more people in the interest of defending proactively, rather than taking a criminal career. What the other thing as well is, do you find, is it mostly businesses, or is it individuals, or is it kind of like a fine mix between who become victims? So what's the type of people that contact you? Is it people who have been compromised, citizens who've lost financially from it, or is it businesses who have lost services? What's the most common, that you would kind of find, that would be the ones that contact you?
I think the most common type are actually individuals, and they
Hmm.
don't necessarily contact us when they've fallen victims, but more and more because of our raising awareness,
Hmm.
they do notify us if they see abnormalities,
Hmm.
such as they get sent phishing links over text messages or what other. So, and they do notify us so that they spot it. With
Hmm.
the help of our activity, these sites get taken down. And if someone who also received didn't notice or paid attention, then hopefully with our collaboration and collaboration towards the
Hmm.
industry and hosting provider, we can remove the malicious content. So those that didn't notify or notice,
Hmm.
they would not fall victim to the scam either.
Okay.
And the second would be then companies tend to notify us a little bit more on when something malicious has happened.
Okay, so we get some suspicious is more from the citizen side, and when actually you're dealing with a real incident, real cases from the business side. So, and also, I mean, what's some of the things, for example, when it comes down to, is there any kind of awareness that you're doing? How are you providing awareness out there to the citizens? What type of awareness is going around? What's the means of delivering that?
There are multiple ways how we do the delivery. So, first of all, every morning we put out a newsletter on what happened over the last
Hmm.
24 hours. And this isn't to point out that, Carson notified of this or fell
Hmm.
victim to that, but we do notify in quantitative terms on how many different DDoSes we saw, targeting which sector, what sort of scams were notified, etc., so that constituents reading the newsletter and overview can do their own risk
Hmm.
assessment based on real evidence what is actually targeting themselves to begin with. And we do different quarterly events. We do an annual event
Hmm.
targeting ICT and security community, where we try to sort of raise general awareness of
Hmm.
different things that do work, things that don't work. It's always good to learn from the mistakes of others and not repeat
Absolutely.
themselves. So, so we there is multiple ways that we try and help people to come out of their sort of daily routine and look at world through our viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always like, not only good to hear about the lessons learned, but also the successes as well. I always find it, hearing where they've been able to react and what techniques was used to prevent it turning into a much bigger catastrophe. I'm also interested as well, is one thing I've noticed, many years ago, the phishing campaigns that targeted Estonian language were not very well written. They were very poorly written. And unless the attackers maybe hired somebody in languages to do translations for them. I've seen, and in more recent times, I've seen the attacks that, using Estonian language has improved significantly. Are you finding a lot of more of the, generative AI types of tools and more better translators that's creating much more kind of, let's say, authentic looking types of phishing scams? Is that something you're seeing a trend? Is that, because I think the Estonian language for a long time was kind of like, was sufficiently protected because translations were not that easy. What are what are your findings around the language improvements over recent years?
Well, Estonian language isn't only good because it's complicated and also good for passwords, because we have so many cases and twists and turns how the language sort of flows. But the main answer why the language skills of criminals have gone up is because simply Google Translate has improved. And you can probably ask these days, it depends how you ask. ChatGPT might refuse to give you an answer, but if you ask it in a sort of nice way, it might actually give you a good answer. But we also know of a case where actually criminals employed a translator. So they've actually had the proper translator from, I think it was Ukrainian or was it Russian to Estonian. So a company contacted us afterwards. Yeah, we did the translation for this. So it's you can't really avoid any of the techniques these days. And you need to look again from the criminal mindset point of view to try and see, okay, I invest a little bit. Does it improve my chances of returning more money or not? Because that's ultimately their driver.
Yeah, because they're running it as a business and they want to have an ROI, and so they're going.
I've yet to see a billionaire who invested $1 million and only made in return 10K. So
exactly. Other thing is how do people contact you? What's the mechanisms? And does all country certs operate in the same way? So, for example, if somebody sees something suspicious or get a phishing email, what's the way that they go reporting it? Is there a portal that they go to, or a contact? What's the mechanisms for reporting cybercrime?
Great question. So for us, you can reach us through portal report.cert.ee. You can reach us by phone. You can send an email, cert@cert.ee. And this is the most sort of traditional way how anyone can reach any cert that operate either governmentally or nationally. But also what we have done and to try and reduce the sort of bureaucratic workload is if you go to our reporting site, report.cert.ee, there is the possibility to notify immediately police, for example, if you fell victim to something. And similar function exists on the police website, so cyber.police.ee, where they can notify us immediately. And, why force someone to put 2 address lines into Gmail when you can just show your willingness there, and it accounts for someone actually notifying both authorities at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. The quicker response is usually the best response, because I find that the longer you leave things, the less breadcrumbs, the less evidence you can actually have that will actually be able to do proper forensics. So the earlier notification, and if you have to deal with both and getting them both involved much earlier, the CERT and the law enforcement is definitely something that will benefit. Is there any type of statistics that I think I remember there's a quarterly report and an annual report that comes out. What types of information you see? What's the big trend that you get from the report itself?
big trend, if I look at the annual report that came out, I believe it was February. So notifications went up by 1/5. Luckily, the number of incidents, i.e. Events that had a negative impact, didn't quite follow that trend. So it proves that we are able to build resilience, and also people are better in sort of detecting malicious activities, not fall into traps, and they are also good in notifying us so that we can try and reduce the uptime of malicious activity that targets people, falling prey to the scams. So numbers do go up. The number of incidents, I believe, was increased only less than 10%, but the amount of notifications went up by almost 20%
That's great.
year on year.
Yeah, that's great to see that people's more willing to let's say one of the big things I was asked years ago was it was during a seminar for parents and law enforcement and teachers. So it was one of those forums, and I was asked a question: what thing can I do that would leave a something that everyone could do, a best practice? And one of the things that I recommend is never be afraid to ask for help. And I think that's kind of one of the most things is that, a lot of people feel that, I feel embarrassed, or I feel like, I did something wrong, or it's, stupidity, or I made a mistake, or I didn't know what I was doing. That's my fault. But I still think it's, getting people with the confidence to not be afraid to ask for help. And the more people that report, the more we get visibility. And to your point, you mentioned earlier that we learn from those. We'll learn from the techniques, and the more people that report, the more we can see the trends, and more we see what's important for us to deal with. So I think that's some of the most important things. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the false sense of shame that if you've fallen into a victim, then you sort of start to believe, okay, no one else talks about it, and why should I talk? That I'm the only one that got abused, and actually we see that happening quite a lot, and we see this false sense of shame, and while we encourage people and especially companies to come out more and to share their experience on why things went wrong, because otherwise it's some government entity saying that hey guys, you should do this, and then if actually one CEO tells to another, this probably wasn't my best decision at the time, and try not to repeat that, then I think that has a completely different take than government agency saying that.
Yes, we just become a facilitator of how they can communicate together. That's ultimately what it becomes. Is there, for the audience listening in, and is there any best practices or tips that you suggest, or resources for people to become, whether being citizens or businesses, to become better? What's the resources you would point them to in order to better become more resilient?
We have many tools that each individual and organization can use out of our toolbox. Just go to CERT-EE. It will forward you to the appropriate section in the agency's website. For example, we are the only team that publicly has made available our repository of threat data in the form that you can dig in on what's happening there, or what is in there, but through DNS you can consult it. And if we believe that a site that you want to enter beyond reasonable doubt is malicious, either relating to malware or phishing, because those two are bad by sort of any definition, then our system would actually block you from reaching there. So it's a great complementary feature to sort of any individual and organization, because everyone have sort of, every morning when we wake up at 5, didn't have our 2 cups of coffee yet. We tend to be a little bit different than in our prime at, after 3 cups of coffee, running on supercharged at 10 a.m. So it is likely that things do go wrong, and it's good to have another safety net running behind. And if something gets blocked incorrectly, you always know who to contact and let us know, guys. this is the one time you didn't get it right.
Absolutely. Defense in depth is important, and threat intelligence sharing helps us, be better at the indicators of compromise. The more we learn the techniques, I mean, the best practices. Absolutely. Tonu, it's been fantastic having you on the show, and I think it's really educational to give people a little bit of behind the scenes about what a CERT is and what it does and what it covers. And I think it's for those listening in, hopefully the businesses will be more willing to cooperate and share and work together, because it is a teamwork effort in order to make the world a safer place. And definitely the more we have people playing in the team, definitely helps us get there. So any final words of wisdom, anything that you would like to share with the audience before we finish up today's episode?
Absolutely. It's very simple, actually. If you look at how criminals cooperate, the more we on the defending side build barriers and sort of don't trust one another, we are actually empowering the bad guys. And in order to make a meaningful impact, we need to start talking a lot more, sharing a lot more, not feeling shame, and understanding that we're not out there alone. Not only us are the ones who get targeted, and actually, if you're in the internet, you do get targeted.
Absolutely, that's wise words. It's a pleasure having you on, and looking forward to catching up in the near future. And absolutely, many thanks for the wise words and the education that we've shared with the audience today. So for everyone, definitely make sure that tune in every 2 weeks for the 401 Access Denied podcast. Hopefully, this has been educational, exciting. We'll make sure that all the links that we shared in today's episode will be in the show notes. And look forward to future episodes, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon. So thank you, everyone. Take care and stay safe.